Hi, David here with Independence Live. I've got Deborah Waters with me in the studio tonight. Deborah Waters from Labour for Independence.
Yes.
How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Excellent.
Very well.
It's really nice to have you here.
It's lovely to be here.
Do you like Jimi Hendrix?
I quite liked, yeah, Jimmy with a badge.
Becoming quite popular with the viewers. So Deborah, it's been a long drawn-out campaign. Obviously we didn't do it, but there was an enormous role played by Labour for Independence. So, how important do you feel that the role of Labour for Independence was specifically within the overall Yes movement?
I don't know if Labour for Indy played a role. Whether it was enormous or not, I don't know. But to me and to other people in the Labour Party, it was a huge thing for us to have something there that said, you're not the only one. You're not the only member that wants to vote yes. You're not the only lifelong Labour voter that wants to vote yes. It was giving them a place to see, a touchstone, if you like, an alternative.
Indeed. And I think we were actually chapping doors together at one point in
Pollock.
Yeah. But it must have been a lot different for you because people go to someone's door and they say, oh, the SNP, Alex Salmond, and you're saying, no, I'm not the
Labour
SNP.
Party. It was very hard because of the media's line, as it were. It was very difficult to try to bring about the understanding of people who'd maybe heard papers, newspaper, etc., that it was all SNP, because my viewpoint had been the people that I've been working with. Yes, there was a huge SNP contingent, but there was a massive amount of people within the Yes campaign that had no party at all, were a different party entirely, a different group entirely. So it was good to be able to go around doors and talk to people and be able to say, actually, I'm Labour, I'm yes, I'm voting yes, and there's lots of us that are voting yes. It's the socialist choice.
And and as well as that, the media, there wasn't a recognition that Labour for Independence was a legitimate group.
No, we were told that we didn't exist. We were told that we weren't party members. We were told that it was a joke. It was an SNP front, which that. For us, that became a running joke throughout the campaign, whenever something happened, oh, that's just because you're an SNP front. So we ended up, laughing at it because it was truly ridiculous. I mean, you were looking at people that had been in the party for 50 years or more who were saying, no, we want to vote yes, and we don't agree with the party line. So I don't understand how they could say when they saw the members that it wasn't.
What size was the actual Labour for Independence? Out of those who voted Labour, those who voted yes out, that was quite a sizable number. But within the party, did you have a same kind of proportion? Was it quite a small group?
But the problem is that the Labour Party's been hemorrhaging members for a long time now. At its heyday, it had about 35,000, I think, within Scotland. Right. Which is still below the European average for party membership. But just before the election, we're aware that it was when Joanne Lamont was being elected, there were 13,000 members, because that was how many ballots were sent out to members. Okay. And now it's...
How much is it? Is it less than 5,000?
No, it's not. It's less than 13,000, but more than 5.
But more than 5, okay.
Yes.
So we've got Labour the movement, but we've got Labour the brand.
Yes.
So where is the distinction between Labour and Labour? If I can put it that way.
The distinction is for me very simple. Labour the brand is about big battle buses, and it's about money and winning at any cost. And Labour the movement is about socialism and a choice for the working people. And I'm not saying that every person in the Labour Party who said we think you should vote no was not a socialist. What I'm saying is that they ignored the still small voice in their head for a while.
Yeah. I mean, you're still a member of the Labour Party.
At the moment, yes.
Yeah. And many other people are. I mean, there aren't many good people. They're yes supporters, they are socialists.
Thompson,
but yet,
Pat Kelly, yeah.
Yet they're still a part of the Labour Party.
Yes. The socialists haven't given up entirely on Labour, especially those who have been there for a long, long time. And there's hope that we could turn things around. But I'm finding that more and more difficult to maintain. I'm officially disillusioned. I was disillusioned before, but I'm now very much officially disillusioned.
Okay. But there is also a Scottish Socialist Party.
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that the SSP now take up the position of the Labour Party, or is there something distinctly different between what the SSP stand for and the Labour movement?
I think that, the Labour movement and the SSP, there's less difference, but there still is difference. I believe that a lot of people will find a home there that maybe had one in Labour. A lot of those that have left will naturally progress towards that, or to other organisations. But I do believe there's a distinct difference between the SSP and the Labour movement. But it's not to kind of rule out the SSP going from strength to strength, as indeed every other indie party has done since the referendum.
And Alan Grogan, of course, has moved into the SSP.
He has, yes. There have been other members as well from Labour for Independence who've decided to join the SSP, and I can understand their choice completely. For me, I don't think it's the right fit for me. I'd probably need to look at it more, but I have looked at it quite closely. I don't think it's the right fit for me, but for so many other of our members, it has been the natural progression when they feel that there's no more hope with Labour.
Do you think that the other yes parties, the Scottish National Party and the Green Party, can also take up that ground?
The Scottish National Party was accused of being tartan Tories many, many years ago, and they do have a significant amount of their membership which is, not so much very right-wing, but, in the middle, more in the middle than the glut of their membership just now. Green Party as well tend to be a more middle-class party rather than a working-class party. So there are spots for them. There are places for pro-independence people within them, definitely, and we've seen that with the surge in membership. But I still think that politics in Scotland is lacking something in the left. It's lacking something, a mass movement. Okay.
Do you feel that the Labour Party has the potential to recover in Scotland since this referendum campaign?
That remains to be seen, but I doubt it. From what I've seen from my personal perspective, what I've seen is very, very few people saying we really need to clean house, we need to change radically. But the majority of no voting party members are saying, let's just continue and start, do as we were doing, but no significant or substantive change.
So what steps would be needed to rediscover the traditional roots of Labour?
A break from Westminster, completely. Right. Complete autonomy.
And did you discuss an independent Scottish Labour Party during the referendum campaign?
A lot of people wanted us to discuss it, but that was not the time or the place. And to be frank, a lot of people don't seem to understand how much it takes to start up a party, to start up a brand new party. And I personally didn't think that it was possible, viable or right that we should. And I think I've been proven in that since the referendum. But I think there's still a place for something different. I don't know what.
Would it be an entirely new party if that was the case? I mean,
it wouldn't have to be a party. It could be an entirely new mass movement that would be able to gather in the people that were involved with the Yes campaign but haven't found a home in any party yet, or even have found a home in a party yet, but still want activity.
Sorry, but if you took the Labour group in Scotland and made the Labour group in Scotland an independent Labour Party, in the same way that you have the Scottish Green Party.
That would be interesting.
The Scottish Green Party, the Green Party of England and Wales. And
that
wouldn't be necessarily creating a brand new party. That would be
giving full autonomy to...
Giving full autonomy, indeed, but still affiliated across the...
Yeah. It would remain to be seen what the elected members and the paid politicos would do with that, but it would be interesting. I don't know how they would find funding because, as I said, with the membership so low and also with union members asking to remove their contribution to the political fund, the money coming into Labour in Scotland is a lot less than it was.
Okay. There seems to be a large move away from trade union contribution to the Labour Party.
Yes.
Certainly the Scottish National Party are now starting to receive
some of that as well.
A great deal more of that. So I think that's a lot.
But it's understandable. People in the trade unions felt betrayed because they felt that a pact with the Tories should never have happened, and it did. So that betrayal is now playing out as I expected it to.
Okay. So what with a new Scottish leader in Labour, what role will they have to play in revitalising Labour?
That would be interesting to see. They would have to, as I said, I think it would have to be root and branch reform of the party, and then a massive increase in engagement in communities, because the engagement in communities right now is minimal.
A root and branch was spoken of in 2011, wasn't it?
It was, yes.
Yeah. Was there ever any leaves touched upon?
Some things were changed.
Yeah.
The way you vote for leader was changed a little bit. Yeah. As for actual substantive change, no.
Right. Who do you see as being the new leader of Labour?
Well,
who's your preferred candidate?
I do, yes. Yeah. I have a lot of issues with the preferred candidate, but to me and to a lot of other people, it's the case of the best of a bad lot, and that's Neil Findlay. So
Neil Findlay.
Yeah.
Do you think is he the favourite to take over, or do you think Jim Murphy's going to?
I think that Jim Murphy might win the media war, as he tends to do. He's a much bigger name, and he's definitely got more experience than Neil. But Neil has a stronger socialist background than Jim.
Yeah.
And also his voting record is better.
Indeed. There was an article carried in Bella Caledonia yesterday by the editor Mike Small. Jim Murphy is described. Can somebody get this cat off me, please? Okay. Jim Murphy is described as aggressive, divisive, arrogant, an unreconstructed Blairite with a sideline in fanatical Zionism, and it may not be the winning ticket. Is that a little bit harsh?
That is quite strong, but people feel very, very strongly about what happened during the campaign. So I can understand maybe the descriptive rhetoric going as far as it does. I know Jim, and personally he's only ever been nice to me, but politically I believe that he is out for himself, and I don't see him giving up a third of his income to charitable
he's got quite
causes.
A lot of income, hasn't he?
He's not. Yeah. I don't think he's the type to decide that he gets paid far too much and to give it away because it's.
I think he doesn't get paid that much. I think it's 65,000 a year, but he's
65,000 a year. That's a lot of money.
But he's a millionaire. I don't know quite how you earn that amount and become a millionaire out of it.
That I don't know either, but I'm sure it's not.
I think the details of that are in the public domain.
They probably are, but it's probably not the best way to go about making your living.
Yeah. So the article was called Black Labour, and it's quite a negative look.
It was very, very negative, but these are dark days. These are dark days for the Labour Party now.
Yeah.
So.
Ed Miliband as a leader of Labour in Britain, and yet 12 days before we went to the vote, he was threatening border guards.
The fear campaign was ridiculous. It was utterly reprehensible, and I can never ever forgive some people for the things that they said and the things that they did to win.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. There was a quote from Katie Clark. This was on Monday. She was speaking on Scotland Tonight.
Yep.
And the quote is, "It could be Scotland that lets us down in 2015. So there is an attitude within Labour that Scotland exists in order to prop up
the state.
Is this attitude going to shift at some point? And I'm trying to sort of get there. There's an attitude towards Scotland, and then there's a realisation that Scotland now has an attitude back.
Well, I think the big wake-up calls were when SNP started doing so terribly well in the Scottish Parliament, and they should have realised something was wrong then. They should have realised that SNP was speaking to the workers and SNP was looking after the workers.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that the Labour Party were not and that they're all awful and terrible, but there's far too much of the gravy train and there's far too much of slavish obedience to this shift to the right, and it's not Scotland. It only speaks to a very, very small amount of Scotland, and I think that they're going to find that out when it comes to 2015. They've taken the Scottish people for granted and they've abused them most horribly, and they will, it will change the vote forever.
I was thinking about whether there's a positive role for Labour within Scottish politics.
There could be a positive role for Labour within Scottish politics, but Labour's going to have to wake up.
Yeah.
My party has to wake up. And it has to say, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? Let's be honest about it. Let's not brush over everything and say it was all those horrible nationalists. Because every time an article came out when it said these crazy cybernats, they weren't talking about crazy cybernats. They were talking about Labour voters as well as SNP members, Green Party members, no party members. They just can't scream that it's the SNP all the time and get taken seriously.
Yeah. On Wednesday, Labour voted to continue welfare cuts for the disabled.
Yes.
The Labour group in Scotland attempted to delete a call for Westminster to halt the rollout of personal independence payments from the motion that was being debated in the Scottish Parliament. So, luckily it was defeated by the remainder of the MSPs.
Yes.
But this would have meant 105,000 disabled people in Scotland losing a minimum of £1,120 out of their income in a year, and 47,000 disabled people losing up to £2,964, so nearly £3,000.
I was a carer for 11 years for my father-in-law. He was wheelchair bound, and instead of farming him off somewhere and letting the state pay for it, we looked after him, and he was part of the family. And the support at that point could have done better, could have been better, and that was 8 years ago. It has only got steadily worse, and from somebody who knows so many people that are being affected by this, by the cuts in disability payments. It's not just the cuts in payments though, it's suddenly you're okay to work, on you go. It's not just that, it's the cuts in services. So there are less occupational therapists, there's less funding. So if you need a ramp, instead of only having to pay a small bit towards it, you now have to pay, 3/4 of it. It's disgusting. I understand that we're being taken to the European Court of Human Rights, or the government is, over its treatment of disabled people.
Well, there maybe won't be such a thing as a European human rights.
Yeah, exactly.
Soon.
we're about to shuck off the human rights bill.
Indeed.
I mean, and I don't think Labour are going to get in, and I don't think that they're going to make it any better when they do.
And in fact,
if they did.
I was there yesterday outside the city chambers. There was the Glasgow Association for Mental Health. Were demonstrating outside the city chambers. They're looking at 40% cuts, which the Labour City Council are set to impose. It's the austerity measure coming from Westminster. So,
and we told people about it, but it was, sometimes you felt as if people didn't believe you when you were saying you think the cuts are bad now. They're going to get worse, and they are. And it's the people that can least afford to have these cuts that are getting them heaped upon them, and they've got very little representation. They've got very few people fighting their corner because there are hardly any social workers left to help them. The CABs are underfunded. What do? Do they stand out in the streets with a cup out and then they'll get arrested?
Well, what they were telling me, I was there with Independence Live. You can see this in the archive. Was that these services weren't just essential, they were vital.
Vital,
And they were the difference between life, literally life and death for people.
Yeah.
So, but generally overall it was a quality of life, and where the 40% cuts are going to be taken away, the void will be filled by the police taking people to police cells.
Yeah.
Occasionally some people might be admitted
Somebody
to
who had a family
wards.
member that suffered from mental health problems all of their life, that's not the solution. Police are not the solution.
No, certainly.
And the
not.
police service is underfunded and overworked as it is. How are they going to take this extra burden? What can they do? You know, it's you keep pushing and you keep pushing and keep pushing at people. Something is going to break somewhere. The dam is going to burst somewhere.
Okay. Remember that Kevin's going to be taking your questions tonight. So Kevin's in a little studio through there. If you send your questions in as normal, Kevin will read them out. We'll put your questions to Deborah. Okay. Now, let's have a little look to... We've got the SNP conference coming up.
Yes, and the RIC conference.
And the RIC conference, so we've got a lot of action happening. But this weekend, we're going to inaugurate a new First Minister.
Yes.
So how do you feel about Nicola Sturgeon taking over the role? I mean, we've had Alex Salmond, and Alex Salmond, I think, was probably the I'm going to say he was the best First Minister we've ever had. Right.
Okay, so
but he was
you're
definitely
going to ask
the
about
most,
a Labour perspective.
From a Labour perspective,
right.
I mean, okay, she's not she's the SNP, but she's Nicola Sturgeon. I mean,
at the start of the independence campaign, I wasn't the biggest fan of Alex Salmond at all. And that's something that you find is quite common, especially amongst people within Labour, that they really disliked him. And
is that because it was...
well, it's, you have conversations with people and they say this, that and that, and you pick up things and you read things, so there's the tribalism.
Is it because he was a rival, but he was also... It's a bit like if you support Barcelona, you don't like Cristiano Ronaldo, but that's because he scores loads of goals.
It's a bit like that, yes.
Was it like that? Because Alex Salmond's very good at, arguing and debating,
He's a very good figure. He's a great orator, and you can say, I don't really fancy him that much. He's not, I don't really like him as a leader, but he's good at this, that, or the other. So, I mean, I was always able to acknowledge where there were faults and failings and where there were good points. Nicola, I'm waiting to see what happens, but from what I saw of her throughout the campaign, she's very sharp. And doesn't tend to miss things, and she's also, I would say, more left than Salmond.
Exactly the point I was going to come to. It's from a Labour perspective, you have Nicola Sturgeon. She's a very honest person. She's very straight and she's very honest, and she genuinely is far more socially aware. Alex Salmond is, I wouldn't quite call him right wing, but he's definitely more used to
I definitely wouldn't call him
liaising with business people, with
he's
famously with the Queen.
He's an economist.
He's an economist.
So.
Whereas Nicola Sturgeon, she's very much grounded. She's very much on the ground. And how does this play out for Scotland?
Well, the attraction of the SNP was that they were wearing Labour's clothes. They were doing the things Labour should have been doing, with the prescription charges, university fees, all the things that were, free travel, etc. So anything that gets them even a little bit further to the left will probably only attract more and more of the Labour voters within Scotland. And I would imagine that more and more of them will not ever identify again, self-identify as a Labour voter, and they will, they will either be a permanent floater voter, or they'll end up identifying more strongly with the SNP. I believe that Alex bore the brunt during the campaign of the hate.
Yes.
Within, from the media, there was, derision heaped upon him, and despite, as I said, not being the biggest fan in the world of him as a person or as a politician, really, rather than as a person, because I don't know him as a person, I was disgusted at some of the stuff that came out of the media. One of the cartoons that the Independent put out just as the white paper was launched was revolting. I felt it was disrespectful to him and to the people of Scotland as an entirety. And I couldn't believe that kind of bile was flowing north of the border. And it just shocked me, and I think it shocked a lot of people.
Yeah. Now, this puts us in a position, at least temporarily, we've got 3 female leaders in the Scottish Parliament. I mean, I mean, does this demonstrate that Scottish politics, I mean, is it streets ahead of Westminster? Does it lead the rest of Europe for a representation across the board? Or are we kidding ourselves on a little bit just because the leaders?
Well, just because the leaders are all women doesn't mean that follows for everything else. And I think that although the representation, I think, is a little better in the Scottish Parliament, it's still not 50-50. It's still not, 50 or better is what we would look for. There's definitely scope to get more women involved in politics, and many more have become involved in politics through the campaign, through the referendum. And we're talking about really good, strong voices from the left, from socialism. Cat Boyd is a perfect example. And it's just been really good to see Saffron Dixon. These are fantastic women, future leaders, hopefully, because I wouldn't mind them being in charge of the country.
Excellent. Well, talking of Saffron Dixon and Cat Boyd, we've got the Radical Independence Conference, and that's on the 22nd of November.
I'll be there.
And you're going to be there?
With bells on, definitely.
With bells on, yes. Can you tell us a bit more about that? What's going to be happening?
Well, first of all, the last year, the Radical Independence had their conference, and there was over 1,000 people attended. Yeah. And the media didn't go near it. And this is it got a byline. It got a one-word byline. From the media. It was paltry, and 7,000 people on Facebook wanted to go, and they could only get a 3,000 venue initially, so they got that and sold out very, very quickly. As each set of tickets was up, they were sold out right away. So I believe at least another 2,000 or 3,000 would have liked to have come along. So that enthusiasm for politics in Scotland, for left-wing socialist politics in Scotland, is a beautiful thing to see.
And remember, we're going to be covering the Radical Independence Conference on the 22nd. Okay, so you can watch it all on Independence Live. But you're also involved in the New Left Project?
The Left Project.
It's called the Left Project?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell us about
that? It's a new thing, but it's called the Left Project.
And we spoke a little bit with Jonathan Shafi about that the last time.
Yes.
What's your involvement with that?
Well, Jonathan asked me, he basically outlined it and what the aims would be of the Left Project, and asked me if I would be happy to be involved, and bit of a loose end after the referendum, I suppose. Yes. So naturally, once I'd spoken to him about it and spoken to a few of the other people that were going to be involved, I was really happy to lend my shoulder to it. Yeah. So it's an exciting idea of maintaining that engagement, the political engagement, and increasing it, so that we've got people in ordinary communities that don't feel as if politics is something that's a million miles away and only for the rich, that politics is for the ordinary person. So back to house meetings, back to street meetings, local workplace meetings, and back to engaging people and finding out what they want, what they need to make their life better, and make life better for everybody.
Okay. So, and it's not specifically for yes voters, it's not
specifically for yes voters, it's for anybody. It's for people on the left. So there's I think there's a couple of people who signed up with Green, some SNP, some SSP. We've got one of our founding members is from Sersey, the Greek political party. It was started off as a movement, and then it became a party. Right, okay. And I suppose the potential is there for the Left Project to do that. But even if that doesn't ever happen, then still as a tool for engagement and activity and activism, it's an exciting thing.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to go to Kevin at some point soon with some of your questions. So if you do have questions, send them in to Kevin. Use the text box at the bottom. We're going to have a look at Catalonia.
Yes.
Catalonia on the 9th of this month had a referendum.
They did, yes, and despite people trying to glue the locks, they still managed it.
Yeah, that's right. We had people over there. Did you manage to get over there yourself?
I didn't manage to go over, no. I'm self-employed, so I don't get any time off ever.
Okay. Well, we managed to get one of our team over there. Derek was over there covering the referendum for us for Independence Live. And there were various faces that I recognised. Shona McAlpine, Natalie McGarry was over there. And there were a few more. It seemed like... they weren't allowed to have...
They were told, no, you're not getting one.
You're not getting it.
They did it anyway.
And what's actually...
I love that.
An interesting thing over there is they actually saw that David Cameron was a great man. But the reason that they saw David Cameron as a great man was that David Cameron allowed for the Edinburgh Agreement to take place,
Right.
so that we could legally have a referendum in Scotland.
And they were
Whereas
told.
in Spain, the 1978 constitution forbids any autonomous region from secession.
Yes.
And so it's entirely illegal, and they won't allow.
I believe that the leader of Catalonia is actually...
Artur Mas.
Yes, he's had legal action taken against him. He's been charged because he allowed
breaching
this,
the constitution.
This referendum. Yeah, he's breached the constitution because he allowed that to happen. They've charged him, which is, well, it's the letter of the law, but you know, you can't deny the amount of people there that want to make a change. Yeah,
and what they did as well was, instead of having the civil servants in the polling stations who would have been breaching their their contracts, they had civilian volunteers man the polling stations. They didn't have the official electoral register either, because that was in the hands of Madrid.
Yeah, and they're denied the access to it for this purpose. Yeah.
I mean, essentially it's a gesture, but was it just over 2?
What a gesture?
Well, I'm being careful how I put it here, because I think it was just over 2 million out of 7.5 million people took part of that.
So they didn't get, but I mean, people there that are active and involved in it would go, and people that care but aren't actively involved would still go as well. But then the ones that are voting no would probably not.
That's right. And
some did, but
the turnouts. Okay, well, actually, of that turnout, 1.6 million voted yes. So the question was a bit similar
That's
to
a similar number.
Yes, I was going to say, it's not only is it a similar number to how many people voted
like
yes in Scotland, it was a similar question to what we had in 1997. So
yes, it was.
Should Catalonia be a state? And then the second question was, should that state be an independent state? And so 1.6 million voted yes. So that was about 80%. So that was really high. But still, 10% on top of that said yes, it should be a state.
No.
But
no,
it
not an
shouldn't be. It should remain autonomous within Spain.
So that was still a yes to more kind of independence,
more autonomy,
and autonomy,
more recognition. 5% voted no, and the rest were spoiled, etc. Mixture. But I think across the board in Catalonia, it's about 60-40 in favour of independence. According to pollsters, it's difficult
it seems
to tell.
be, but it's hard to tell. But
if you had a full
the thing is, if the pollsters are saying 60-40, then it's not going to be too far from that. It's not going to vary from that a tremendous amount. So, it's there are massive differences between the independence movement in Catalonia and in Scotland, but there are also massive similarities that we want to be in charge of our own destinies, and it's lovely to see that they got the vote that they did, and they have the level of support that they do, and it's really great to have that connection with them as well, because becoming independent isn't about becoming insular and hiding from the world. It's about reaching out to the world
part,
and taking a full and active part in kind of the European community and the world.
Okay, Deborah Waters, thanks very much for joining us.
Really nice.
Thank you very much for watching. Okay, we'll see you soon. Peace.